Mixties presents the Popcast.
And I said to myself, what a wonderful
Hey everybody, my name is Brian Montgomery, and I am here with the one, the only, the man, the myth, the legend, Shane Montgomery.
I don't feel like I can live up to that expectation.
But you have to, sir. You have to.
Nice,
This
thank you.
is Mixties presents the Popcast.
Very nice. You know what I was thinking about?
Yes, sir.
I was thinking about that first episode that we did about the Force.
Oh, the Force, yeah.
Do you remember when you couldn't say midichlorians?
midichlorians?
They were middies.
midichlorians.
Yeah.
Am I saying it right now? Midichlorians?
Midichlorians.
Midichlorians.
That's how you say it. Middies, midichlorians.
Yeah, I still just call them middies. I think they're stupid because I can't pronounce their name. But yeah, I remember. Do you remember, it was not that episode, but the episode we were talking about Superman?
You mean breaking the fourth wall?
No, I meant the Superman one.
Okay, Superman.
Because you were like getting really violent about your drive down here.
Oh, I was going to...
Saying you're going to use... you have super speed, you have super flight, but you're going to use your laser eyes to instead inflict pain on people that are in front of you.
I just want to move them out of the way. I don't actually want to inflict pain, but if they move because they're scared of the way I look, I'm okay with that.
Yeah, well, like I said, though, you have flight, speed, you can jump fast, you can blow them with your breath. There's so many other ways that are non-lethal.
Hey, do you remember when we were breaking the fourth wall in
I
our
remember
second
that.
episode?
Yeah, and you fourth walled me.
Yeah, and I fourth walled you.
Yeah, I feel like you do that a lot.
Okay.
And I don't ever see it.
I do sometimes.
Scares me.
Listen, I don't know what to tell you except that you still have something in your mustache.
Damn it. So what we were just doing there, folks, that was called bottlenecking.
Bottlenecking.
Or bottling, right?
No, that was bottlenecking.
That was bottlenecking.
Yes.
So bottlenecking, oh, by the way, what we're talking about this episode is Bottle and Bottleneck TV episodes.
That's right. You may have heard them as other things, notably a clip show, recap episodes, or something like that.
or the flashback episodes that everyone
flashback.
really, really hates because they feel like they've been gypped after 40 minutes of watching flashbacks and one character talk about them.
It's actually a bottlenecking, and we're going to explain what that is, and give you a little bit of history of where the whole idea and concept came from. But I think you're pretty much an expert on this topic, Brian. So why don't you tell us a little bit about the bottleneck and why they use it and how they use it and what the purpose is?
Okay, so the bottleneck episode is interesting. Basically, for a series of television, you are allotted a specific amount of money. It's called your budget. You have a budget for every episode, and it comes out of a larger budget for the entire season. Now, let's say the director or the showrunner wants to do a really awesome finale, or he wants to do a crazy cliffhanger for the mid-summer, mid-season finale.
Okay.
To get people to come back 2 months from then and finish the season out. Well, in order for them to have the budget for the graphics and the sets and the additional guest actors or whatever, you have to take away from something. You have to take away from other episodes in order to give the money you need for that amazing episode, right?
Makes sense.
So you take your budget per episode and you take the budget for one episode to apply it to this big, awesome episode, but you still have to do that episode.
You still have to make it and put it on TV.
Right. So the most common trick about doing the episode is first using as little as the actual cast as possible.
So you don't have to pay them.
Right. Okay. Using one set, right?
Right.
And one, very easy to follow storyline so that the writing's less,
Okay.
the actors are less, the sets are less, the time, it takes a lot less time. And that one actor will somehow just talk about clips, talk about things that happened in the past via flashbacks, and all of the entire episode is done in the editing bay versus on the set.
Okay.
And you've seen that a lot. I remember those. Every single season of Stargate has a flashback episode or a bottleneck episode.
Yes, they were the episode where I'm like, oh, I can't stand the fact that I have to go back and revisit every episode now.
Yeah, especially for you, since you watched Stargate back to back.
I did watch them boom, boom, boom.
So you would notice that character you just saw in one episode in the Bottleneck episode is wearing the same exact uniform, same exact hairstyle. They literally just shot that footage back to back.
So basically, Amanda Tapping never left the set.
Right.
Yeah.
She just stayed there. Everybody else split. They kept the cameras on, and she did flashbacks.
Okay.
So that's a good way for them to get an episode to you, not let you down too badly because you are seeing flashbacks of things you probably liked, and new people that come into this show, if they happen to catch that episode, they get to sort of get caught up on the season right before that awesome episode where they do the cliffhanger.
Right. You know everything that's happening, and if you've been catching it every week, then it is kind of a nice little warm-up, and you can kind of walk down memory lane, so to speak.
Right.
But what's interesting about this Bottleneck episode, this is really more of a new type of thing that they've been doing with TV. I would say in the recent decade or so, it actually came from an original thing called bottling. And they used to call it, if you want me to give a little bit of history about it.
I do, sir.
So this actually comes from Star Trek, which and a lot of people this is going to ring true for a lot of people, and their minds are going to say, I've heard that somewhere. But it was actually called a ship in a bottle episode. And this is where Star Trek, where they would use the cast and crew members, would have episodes that took place solely on board the Enterprise.
Right.
And they did this, the same reason that you have the bottlenecking episode, was to save money.
Budget constraints, yeah.
Less sets, less money for time spent, less graphics, less things like that. And they would actually, and they called it a ship in a bottle episode. And this is back in the 1960s where this term was actually coined.
Well, what they allowed for that too, though, the bottle episodes allowed the writers to really shine and the actors to shine. So,
well, they had to because if there was not good writing, you were going to have a bad episode.
Some of the best episodes, the highest rated episodes on TV, were bottle episodes because that was all about the character development.
Right.
And if the actor was good and the writers were good, then they can really make an amazing television show with very little sets, very little graphics, and they don't have to rely on all that stuff. Which they don't have to rely on it, but they also have to spend any money on it.
Okay.
So I think it's more difficult from a writer perspective to write a bottle episode, but it might not be as fun for the fan that might want to see new sets and cool visuals and a lot more characters.
Yeah, if you're coming into a season on a bottleneck episode, you're not going to be terribly excited about it.
Right.
And if you're not really familiar with the world or whatever you're getting involved with whatever TV show it is, you may not like a bottle episode because it's very close, it's very emotional, it's very intrinsic on what's happening with these actors. You don't get a lot of the backstory.
Yeah, it's usually focused on the character that the fans most connect with.
That totally makes sense. The first actual bottle episode that they go back and look at and say, this is when this really first occurred, was actually before Star Trek on an old episode of Doctor Who. It was the third story of Doctor Who called The Edge of Destruction. And it was actually a two-part. They wanted to do a two-part story, and they didn't have enough money, so they went ahead and did this bottleneck episode with the Doctor. So it's kind of cool little history with what we do, pop culture stuff. And now there's a new Doctor Who. So
I love the business of TV so much.
Really?
It's fascinating.
You watch a lot of TV. What do you like about it?
Well, I watch too much TV.
Okay.
Let's be clear. A lot of TV, and there's too much TV. I watch a lot of TV, and I watch everything on Hulu. I watch shows just to watch shows and see if I'm going to like them. So I'll watch like 3 or 4 episodes of something that I may initially look at and say, that looks stupid.
You're putting your toe in the water. See if
but
it's
I'm going to
warm.
put my toe into the iZombie, which is my latest one, water, and I'm going to watch a few episodes and see if I can force myself to like these characters. I have not liked the characters on that television show.
Okay.
I'm now on episode 5. I don't even like the show.
And you've hung in there.
I've hung in there. I'm trying to get through like the first season.
Just to see what happens.
And if it's bad, I'll stop there.
Okay.
But there's plenty of good TV that where the first season is rocky, but they somehow push the characters into your heart, and then the second seasons are great, like Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. But the business of TV is fascinating because there's sweeps weeks and there's premiere weeks, and there's different parts of the year where a lot of television comes out at the same time. And these different networks, they haven't decided as a group to do this, but because of the tradition and time over decades, different networks have just sort of released new shows around the same time.
Okay, I've noticed TV has changed in the last decade or so.
Right.
And it was actually kind of a disappointment with me. It started back with Heroes. When that came out, there was a lot of anticipation for it, and then it died quickly. And they almost feel like they're breaking up the TV season into 2 seasons inside 1 year.
Mid-season finales are a thing now.
And that really didn't play well with me in a lot of series that I liked, and I can't remember them off the top of my head, but there were several TV shows that came out where I was really into them, and they just never came back.
Right, so there's miniseries, there's full series, right, and there's the extended series. So you have miniseries, usually like 6 to 8 episodes. You have the miniseries that run for one half of a season. And half of a season is like this determined amount of time now where, okay, this amount of time this show runs, whether it's a bi-weekly or a daily episode, whatever, it's going to run until this time. And then certain events come up like Winter Olympics and football and other things out there that has nothing to do with the TV world, but TV wants to display those. So they'll break during those time. They'll break during the holidays and during the football season for those shows so that they're not competing. Their networks aren't competing for that time.
Okay, that makes sense, and it kind of fits in with the whole idea of the bottlenecking because some of these TV shows, they don't know if they're going to get picked up for more seasons.
So what happens is you can stop and you finish that season at 10 episodes or 12 episodes, and that season's over. But what a lot of TV is doing now is going, well, people like this series. We have a lot more story to explain, so let's stretch this out to 18 episodes or 22 episodes, right, in a season, something crazy. And we'll just stop halfway through. We'll call it a mid-season finale. We'll do something crazy, and we'll go on to season 2, episode 14.
2A.
A month and a half later,
Right.
Basically, what you're doing is you're taking 2 seasons and you're calling it one season, but they can call it one season, get a bigger budget for the entire 20 episodes, whatever, give you a bunch of half episodes, bottleneck episodes, and bottle episodes, and then have a few episodes that really stand out and get Emmys.
And that's how they make it work.
And that's the business of TV, because now TV shows are getting accolades and awards. And so they want to take as much money as possible and put them into those few episodes that they want to run that gambit of the award gambit and get extra attention. In order to do that, they have to give you some episodes that are either bottle episodes, maybe they're half bottle episodes, where it's a lot less of a cast, there's no real conclusion. It just sort of holds you over until the next week. And they've been doing that a lot, and for the last probably decade, since Heroes and Lost, that's sort of been the way. Keep them on the hook until the next week. Keep on the hook till next week. Keep on the hook until that last episode where we actually use the budget and blow you out of the water, and that's the same episode that gets picked up and gets TV Emmys and whatnot.
See, this is why I feel like, part of me feels like there was a cheapening of the television season. Almost there was a, maybe this is when I switched over to mostly the live, Survivor and American Idol.
They're manipulating their audience.
I don't like being manipulated.
Well, I understand that, but you know what it does? There's a flip side to this twisted coin, because while you're being manipulated during the live television part of it, right, where you're watching every week, when those things hit Hulu and Netflix, and you watch the entire season, it's actually a better experience.
That's true, and that's a whole different era that we're going into right now. That's really new television and where we're going with that, which we should probably do an episode on.
It's almost like long form movie, because the way they're developing these episodes, where they're holding you, keeping you activated, and giving you small pieces at a time, instead of giving you a conclusion like they did in the 90s. What that's doing is they're making this 22-hour long movie,
basically,
that has breaks in between when you watch it on Netflix.
It's episodic, right?
Because instead of every single episode having a conclusion, you're following this huge underlying storyline.
It's like soap operas.
Right.
They've brought them in.
It happened a lot with Lost, too.
Lost was that way. Yeah, you had to, if you missed a couple episodes, it was dangerous.
Screwed.
Yeah, you were in big trouble.
And it was crazy because Lost were like the king of the bottle episodes. There was never any Lost episodes that were, this is a bottle episode. But all those episodes where all you see is 2 guys in a bunker and flashbacks okay, which you saw a lot of.
There were a lot of flashbacks.
A lot of flashbacks. And those two guys in a bunker. One set and a bunch of flashbacks. There was at least 30 episodes
They saved a lot of money.
out of 8 seasons.
I can't imagine filming on an island was real expensive either.
Right. And I love this. They would actually go to the internet and find theories. The writers admit this. J.J. Abrams admit this. They would go to the internet and find theories about where they were going with the writing. They were just writing. They never had an end game.
They didn't have anything. They were going.
Right. So when they're writing season 5 and you're watching season 4, they're online looking at what you want to see. And they're writing bits and pieces of the conspiracy theory into the show.
Wow, the
fans wrote it.
That is just another way. That's just a new genre of television.
And I got to tell you, that really showed though by season 6 that the convolution of that series became evident when there was no real conclusion. You know, no spoil. I mean, there's no spoilers. It's been off there for a long time. We'll look it up. But
no one still knows what happened.
There was no real conclusion.
Yeah, nobody knows what the ending was.
Almost none of the loose ends were ever tied up. They just kept convoluting and continuing down this rabbit hole with loose connections going everywhere, and a spaghetti of a conspiracy theory with zero satisfaction at the end of the road.
That is maddening.
It was maddening.
You know, I got through the first season of Lost. I'm so glad I quit.
Oh, and you know what I tell people? When they go, oh man, I'm watching Lost. That's a good series, right? I'm like, stop while you're ahead, bro.
Taylor's over there nodding. He's like, yes, bad.
Get to season 2 or 3 or whatever and just shut it down. Just know you're never going to have the answers, because if you go all 6 seasons and you get to that last episode, you will be upset.
I'd like to go and find out what the suicide numbers look like after that. How many people were like, oh my gosh, Lost. I remember Lost is on. I've got to get home. Oh my gosh. Yeah. It was.
Heroes was similar, but at least they gave you a proper conclusion.
There were 2 or 3 TV shows that came out. One with the actor that was in Rome. I don't know. He's a redheaded guy. I don't remember his name anymore. He was in the miniseries Rome that was on HBO.
I remember.
And then also he was on the TV show Grey's Anatomy for a while.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And
I know his name.
He had this TV show where he was a time traveler. And he basically would jump back into time, almost like randomly, to solve mysteries in different time zones in sort of San Francisco,
like Quantum Leap,
kind of like Quantum Leap, but he was himself,
right,
traveling through these different times, and
I remember
he didn't have control of it.
And I remember they didn't finish the season.
It was. I got to tell you, I watched it. I was on pins and needles. I was loving every second of it. And then it ended on a cliffhanger and never came back. And I don't think I forgave. I don't know who. I think it was CBS.
And it had something to do with Alcatraz too, right? Like his base of operations was in Alcatraz.
He was in San Francisco.
Right.
So Alcatraz.
What was Alcatraz about though? Like that was where they were fashioned? That was their base?
Well, he was just a guy. He was a police officer. I think he was a police officer.
He was a police officer that was bouncing around. He was trying to unravel the mystery.
Right. He was trying to find
And there was
happening.
one person that was like the same age in every timeline. Remember?
Yes. Right.
I hated that. I love that series.
I wonder, because it had so much interest, I wonder if they were just like, we don't know where to go with this thing. We're just going to get too crazy jumping in these time zones.
And it was the same company that made Lost. I think they were like, yeah, we're not going to piss people off again.
Yeah, let's not do that.
Yeah, we shouldn't do that.
So let me ask you, one of the great Bottle episodes is Community, the cooperative calligraphy, and I know you really like that one.
I like that series, and I watched that episode recently with our guy over here, Taylor, and yeah, we enjoyed it. It basically takes place inside of the study hall, which is where usually the show starts. It starts with them in study hall, and they sort of disperse in their own misadventures. But in this particular episode, before they can leave the study hall, the character Annie goes, "Where's my pen?" She lost her pen.
Okay.
And everybody's like, "We don't know where your pen's at." And she gets adamant. "This is the 5th pen I've lost. I will find my damn pen. No one's leaving until I find it." And basically they oblige her, and it becomes this obsessive compulsive thing to find the pen. And where they're blaming each other. "You have the pen. No, you have the pen." They're getting naked. They're putting their clothes on, sit out. They're putting all their purses on the ground, just tearing the entire room to pieces trying to find this pen. And they even cut open the old guy's cast, thinking maybe he had stashed the pen in his cast.
Was it Chevy Chase, the old guy?
Chevy Chase, the old guy.
How good is he in that show?
I think he's hilarious.
Is he funny?
I know people think he's like an a-hole or whatever, but in that series, he's funny. And everything he's funny.
I've always loved Chevy Chase.
I think in real life, he might be an asshole. So that series basically ends, and I don't want to give away the ending. You can just go watch it. But it ends with no one finding the damn pen.
Okay.
There is a conclusion to the pen. I'm not going to blow it up for you. You guys can look it up on Hulu.
I'll go look it up.
Yeah, it's really great. The conclusion really wraps it up nicely and makes you laugh, and has like a very long joke that starts in the beginning of the episode and sort of finishes with that last scene. And you can tell that aside from the cost of the cast themselves, the rest of that episode didn't cost much at all.
Nothing. It was very cheap.
All in one room. Even the extended cast members that are usually on the show weren't on the show, and like you hear their voices over intercoms and whatnot, but they were probably taken from other previous shows. So I mean, it was a very cheap episode to make, and it's one of the highest rated ones out there.
Okay. Did you know that? Were you ever a fan of MASH?
Back a long time ago.
You know, MASH was a TV show from the 70s and the 80s, and they did a lot of episodes. They spent a lot of time in the OR for a lot of episodes, but they also had other scenes that happened. But there was one episode for MASH where it was completely done in the OR. And so all the scenes, the people coming in and out, they were doing surgery on, and they actually removed, I don't know if you remember MASH, but it had a laugh track.
Oh, yes.
Which is really ironic for such it was a wartime.
Yeah, it was a wartime series.
Comedy kind of.
Right.
Satire, I guess.
No, they had a laugh track in the middle of World War II or something.
Right. It was Korean War.
Korean War, yeah, right.
So in this one
People
episode,
are dying and stuff. There's a laugh track.
It was, I know, right? And in this one episode, they removed the laugh track. So it actually became kind of a serious MASH episode, and it showed like the tiredness of these doctors during wartime behind enemy lines. So MASH was a great. They had some great bottle episodes. Doctor Who, you're a fan of Doctor Who.
I'm a fan of Doctor Who. I'm a fan of MASH too. I mean, I watched MASH. It was beyond my time, but I remember growing up, and even in my teens, catching it at like 3 in the morning and 4 in the morning and very late. That'd be all I can really watch. That's all that was on TV. You know, there was no DVRs, no Hulu, no Netflix.
There was an episode of MASH that freaked me out. It was like a dream sequence where they were all so tired that they would fall asleep and have these really vivid, crazy dreams.
Oh, really?
And I don't know if you remember Hot Lips Houlihan.
Oh, yeah. And remember, he gets with her in that dream sequence, right?
You mean Frank?
Frank. The guy, not the doctor with the glasses, not the brown-haired guy, but the blonde-haired dude.
The weasel guy.
Right. He gets with the hot nurse in the dream, right?
Well, the episode of the dream that I remember was these mannequin parts, these arms and legs, were going in the pool.
I remember that too.
And it kind of freaked me out when I was younger. I was a kid.
I remember as a 15-year-old watching the other version of that, and being like, all right. I can get behind this series.
You're like, okay, I could watch more of this, especially at 15, I guess.
Yeah.
So Doctor Who has a couple of famous bottleneck episodes that are pretty
I love Doctor
neat.
Who. I don't like classic Doctor Who, though.
You can't go back to the old stuff.
I tried to, and the graphics are so cheesy and so campy that even though the writing is genius, because the writing is really good, it doesn't weigh enough to outweigh the cheesy campy of the other part of it.
Is it more cerebral, do you think? Is it more thought provocative than the new actiony Doctor Who?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I would say that. I wouldn't say the writing is better or worse. I would say it relies more on what they're saying versus showing you.
Okay. If you're a fan of David Tennant, then you might remember the episode. He was season 2 and 3 of the new season, Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. There's an episode called Midnight where he's on a shuttle, but a science fiction tour bus kind of thing.
Oh, okay.
And
they did that in the newer one too.
Which one?
There was a new episode where now I see the reference.
That was also in an older episode?
Yeah, so they referenced that. So yeah, there's an old episode where they reference like this train, is space train or whatever.
Okay.
Right. And it was also a bottle episode because it all happened in one car of the space train.
That's what this episode of David Tennant is. Right. And basically what's happening is there's this invisible spirit that's like possessing all the passengers. Mm-hmm. And whenever somebody says something, the spirit repeats what that person says.
Oh, that's
and
creepy.
It becomes very paranoia, very creepy. It's one of the really great Doctor Who episodes.
I watched that episode. I always remember thinking, why is the spirit not infecting David Tennant?
Right, because he was actually the pivot of the whole thing.
Right.
He was the only one not being affected. He was the audience, I guess. Or
right, he was the audience, right.
Right.
No, but I remember watching that and going, because the episode would be over the second he got infected.
Yeah, it's done.
Yeah, he can't get infected because you're watching everything through his eyes.
Yeah, he's got to save the day in the end.
Right.
Were you a fan of Farscape?
I was, for its brief time on air.
Okay,
I love that those two characters from Farscape moved over to Stargate for season 8 and 9.
Okay, that's cool.
Claudia Black and whatever his name is.
Well, Farscape had an episode called Crackers Don't Matter. And I don't know if you remember Ben Browder. He was John Crichton.
Right.
And this episode where he proves just how far your genetic everyman protagonist, how much he really is that kind of character. And they have basically this mental breakdown. And it's interesting because he becomes like a maniac in that episode. And it's all he's seeing hallucinations.
I think I remember that.
Of his arch nemesis.
Yeah, it's been a
Scorpius,
long time.
yeah.
Right. I think I remember that, yes.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool that Farscape actually rated pretty high with a bottle episode. And that was on the Sci-Fi Channel.
was like a weirder version of Babylon 5, right? Like,
yeah, it was just kind of out. It was a little bit.
It was like, okay, well, Babylon 5 is a weird version of Star Trek. Let's go weirder.
Let's go a little bit further.
And go Farscape.
That's why it's Farscape. Farther.
right. Farther than the weirdness that is Babylon 5. So Babylon 9, whatever it's called.
Babylon 9?
Is it Babylon 5 or Babylon 9?
Well, somebody write us in and let us know.
Yeah, please let us know.
So the number one, though, this is just off of a fan site. We're trying to find bottle episodes. I'll try to find that site and let people know maybe on Twitter. But it was called The Balance of Terror. It was a Star Trek episode, original series.
Yes.
The Balance of Terror. It was written by Paul Schneider and directed by Vincent McAvity.
I remember it well.
It was the 14th episode of the first season. And at that time, submarine movies were actually pretty popular.
Right.
And the whole thing with the Enterprise, it basically is a submarine in space.
Submarine in space, yeah.
Right. So I don't know if you remember, but that was some pretty good acting chops from Leonard Nimoy they found at that time.
That was the best at the time. Yeah. Let me ask you a question. You were on, I'm not trying to divulge from the point, but you were in the Navy. Were there Jeffrey tubes in the Navy?
No, but there are torpedo tubes.
But tubes of people for the purpose of going between deck and deck.
I wouldn't call them tubes. There's ladders. Okay. So some people would call them, they're basically hand-over-hand ladders. Or
Star Trek
stairs.
is like the Navy in space, right?
Yeah. Well, the Jeffrey tubes, basically it was the same thing. Imagine no tube, but you got those rungs that go up.
Right.
That's what the Navy has.
Cool. All right.
So just no tubes. The tubes look sexy. They look futuristic.
Yeah, I had to know. I've always wanted to know that.
You caught me off guard on that. That's
sorry
nice.
about that.
Yeah. Now you guys know I was in the Navy. All right, cool.
Yes. Oh, yes. Shane over here served in our great Navy.
And you served in the Army.
Don't try to bring that up, bro.
You don't want to admit that?
No. All
right.
No,
It
we
was
did.
great.
We both
It was
served. It was wonderful. That's the last we'll speak of that.
Taylor's laughing at us right now, by the way. Just he's not.
He's not laughing. He's not laughing right now.
He says he's not, but he is.
It's so awkward right now. Why is it so awkward?
I feel weird. Let's go back to
Can
this.
we go back to that thing?
Yeah, so basically it's a Romulan warbird.
Yes.
Wait, was it warbird? Romulan warbird.
Warbird, yeah.
And the Romulan... the Romulan...
They were the warbirds, and the Klingons had Bird of Prey.
Bird of Prey, you're right. So the Romulan vessel was like the German U-boat.
Right.
And then, of course, the Enterprise is like the American sub. And they can't see each other because their sensors are down. And so they're kind of circling each other, trying to find each other, who's going to make the first sound. And in the end, of course, the Enterprise takes them down.
Oh, is that what happens in the end?
Yeah, I'm going to tell it.
Oh, it must be a spoiler. I would have assumed the entire Enterprise and the Enterprise crew had died and perished.
Well, they could have just stopped and had tea and crackers or something.
I guess that's possible, too.
Yeah, but highly unlikely.
Whenever someone talks about Star Trek, I love how the skeptics always do the same thing. Let me guess how it ends. Captain Kirk wins.
Captain Kirk always wins. Did he ever lose?
Yeah, I can't. No, he didn't. I can't. It's hard to argue the validity of Star Trek when really the good guys win almost every time.
Gosh, I don't want to go down this rabbit tube, but I got to tell you, there's an episode. I don't know if you remember it, but Captain Kirk, he always would fight and win.
Right.
Take care of the business. There's this one episode
Take care of business.
where was that your Cartman version of that?
It was.
That was terrible. That was great. I'm sorry, it was good. There's an episode where they're down in a mining planet.
Oh, yes.
Okay, right? And
Galaxy Quest did a parody of this.
They did with
Yes.
the balls,
Right.
silver, yeah.
Whatever they're
so
called, yeah.
basically this, and I want to say Chondra is what it was called, or Hydra, or whatever they called it. This creature would come in
draw.
and basically just, suck the life and burn someone, eat them, and then slide back into a hole.
Right.
And you've got Kirk and Spock and McCoy and all these people down here, and I keep going, and they're like, okay, split up, man. And I'm like, no, don't split up. That's a really bad idea because everybody who's alone keeps getting killed by this thing. Yeah. I wish I knew the name of the actor. But anyways, so he's about to shoot this thing.
And the red shirt guys are like, okay, you two red shirt guys, you go that way. Blue shirt guy, you go that way. Red shirt guy's dead.
Red shirt guy always dead, which
For sure dead.
absolutely. You knew it. You knew it was coming. So Captain Kirk is alone, and he's down here, and all of a sudden this thing comes out of nowhere. And he points his phaser at it, and for whatever reason, it stops. And somehow, I guess Spock does a mind meld with it, maybe, and figures out that these are its babies, these little balls, right? And I thought it must have came in like the third season of Star Trek, because it was one of those episodes where you're like, this is so un-Kirk-like. He would have shot that sucker when it was about to get him.
Hey, why did he stop?
He stopped because they wanted to change his character up a little bit, show a little more humanity.
I get that. But then you got to think about this. Yeah, I mean, it sucks that these little things are his kids, but he has killed 13 of your crew members.
Yeah. And I don't know, I'm sure it paralleled some sort of thing that was happening at the time.
13 of those little red shirt guys
Well, they're gone.
just disintegrated.
Plus the guys in the mines. It was taken
and the
down.
guys in the mines, yeah. So, like, their families back home.
Right, and they're using these little balls.
Right. A couple dozen people have perished, and we're going to, I'm sorry. The little balls were your eggs. We apologize.
Yeah, we're sorry, and we're going to go ahead and head back up now and leave this, $1 million credit mining operation.
Yeah.
It was a really funny turnaround, but that was definitely not a bottle episode.
No.
Which it was not, because it happened on location and things happened, but I always thought it was interesting.
Yeah. No, I think it's fine. You're right. Kirk, the actual Kirk, the character, before trying to adjust his character, would have shot him instantly.
Instantly, yeah. It would have
Called
been.
the Federation and said, okay, set up shop.
Yeah.
He was the most American version.
And Star Trek didn't last much longer after that. So
Right. Yeah, for a reason.
Okay.
All right.
You have anything else?
We're at 32 minutes. We got any call-ins? We got any mail?
We do have some mail.
Woo-hoo.
We have some mail.
We got the mail. We
let's
got
see.
the mail.
I am titling this letter, let's see. You guys confuse the poop out of me.
Oh, I see. He said something besides poop.
She said something. Well, she didn't really say it.
Okay, all right.
I thought it was funny.
What is her name?
This is from Scarlett. She's from Mayport, Florida.
Hey, Scarlett from Mayport, Florida.
That sounded so creepy.
Thank you so much for calling
Scarlett.
in to the Brian and Shane Show.
I apologize. He's being
We're top of the hour. It's quarter six. What do you got to say today, WNBC?
Okay. So she writes,
Thank you, Scarlett.
Dear podcast guys, Brian and Shane, I am a mother of 4, and I spend a lot of time doing laundry for my family.
Oh, that's nice of you.
I like to listen to you guys while I'm doing the mundane task of folding clothes.
Awesome. We need to find out where she found us.
We will.
Okay.
I'll ask her.
Yeah.
I was listening to Superman, your episode,
Alrighty.
because my oldest son, Roger, who's 12, won't stop talking about it, and I figured, he actually is talking about the new movie.
Awesome.
And coming up, and figured it would be good to know what the heck he's talking about. So she listened to our podcast.
It's Ted? What was
His name's Roger.
Roger. Why did I say Ted? Roger, you and I are cut from the same cloth, my little friend.
Nice. So it says here that she was doing really good with the episode right up until Brian started explaining the new 52.
Uh-oh.
And she says, can you quickly explain that again? And that way, when I go to watch the movie with my son, I'll be able to do that. And also, can you give Roger a shout out? He listens sometimes with me.
Yo, Roger,
Thanks.
what's up, man?
Roger.
How you doing, Roger?
Yes, Roger, how are you doing? That's good. Roger, glad you're listening.
Nice to see you, Roger. Thank you for being a fan. Okay, so New 52. Let me just catch my breath real quick.
And I'll be honest with you, I was very confused, too.
Yeah, so basically there are two events that define the DC universe. There's the Flashpoint event, and there is the multiple universe event. So about 25 years ago, they decided we need to shrink our versions of all these superheroes. So they did something called this multiverse thing where they shrunk all the multiverses into one. But then they continued on their wary path and continued to make different versions of superheroes. So in order to tighten their grip on their IP and their property, what DC did was, we're going to have one more event. We're going to use the Flash as the catalyst for this event. We're going to call it the Flashpoint, right? And we're going to once more combine all the Earths 1, 2, 3, and Prime and different Earths into one. And these will be the superheroes going forward that we protect as canon. And when we write about them, our writers and our comic book artists and our TV guys and our movie guys are all going to write from the same universe, like Marvel does.
Okay.
So they did the latest event was called Flashpoint, where they literally combine all the different versions of Superman in the story into one, because there were so many different versions of Superman and other characters that in order to get all those, to break it down with the fans via the story, they wanted to use the storyline itself, sort of like Star Trek did with J.J. Abrams going back in time, and we're going to use the story itself to break it down into one cohesive canon that they can then control throughout the movies and TV and the new media going forward.
So basically what he's saying here, Scarlett, is that they had a messy desk, and they cleaned up their mess and put it all back together.
But they used story elements to do it.
They use story elements. Okay.
That way fans wouldn't be like, well, what about the Star Superman from 1982? I mean, he can carry like a planet on his back, right?
And there are fans who do that, too.
Right. So in order to please those fans so they don't start trying to use canon from 1982, they break them all into one and go, hey, listen, it's not a reboot per se, but it is a soft reboot. We're combining everything, and these are the new characters going forward. Everything before the Flashpoint event doesn't matter. Didn't happen, but it doesn't matter to this universe any longer. These are your new heroes, and they're small. You know, their powers are diminished comparatively to their pre-Flashpoint brother.
Okay, so Scarlett, I hope that answers your question, and if it doesn't, write us and let us know, and Brian will give you a lengthy discussion on it, or at least a little letter.
Scarlett, thank you for listening.
Thank you, Scarlett.
And Roger, my man, thank you for listening, Roger.
High five, air high five.
High five. Woo! Good man. And anything else?
Where can they catch us?
Well, they can find us on iTunes. They can find us on rawrant.com, twitter.com/mixtease, facebook.com/mixtease, and of course, mixtease.com/blog. We are the Popcast.
We are the Popcast, and don't forget your $9 shirts at mixtease.com.
And we'll see you next week.
Next week.